I can no longer recall exactly which year it was. For an entire month, I hunted with passion, with wild joy, with that fervor that only a newfound obsession can bring. At the time, I was living in Normandy, at the ancestral chateau of my bachelor cousin, Jules de Bonville. We were alone there, save for his maid, a footman, and a watchman. The old building, surrounded by groaning fir trees, stood at the center of long oak-lined alleys where the wind raced freely. The chateau had the air of abandonment. In the corridor, where the draught wandered like through a park lane, hung portraits of those who had once received noble neighbors with ceremony in rooms now locked and cluttered with a single piece of antique furniture. We had taken refuge in the kitchen, the only place fit for living. Vast and shadowy, it was lit only when a fresh bundle of logs was thrown into the enormous fireplace. Each evening we dozed by the fire, our damp boots steaming before the hearth, while the hunting dogs, curled at our feet, barked in their sleep, chasing phantom prey. Then we would climb to our room. It was the only room whose walls and ceiling had been thoroughly plastered. The mice had seen to that. Whitewashed with lime, it remained bare. On the walls hung rifles, boar spears, and hunting horns. Chattering from the cold, we would crawl into the beds placed on either side of this Siberian dwelling. A league from the chateau, the cliff dropped steeply into the sea. From the breath of the ocean, day and night, the bent trees groaned, rooftops and weather vanes creaked, and the venerable structure itself rattled, filled with wind that slipped through thinning tiles, yawning chimneys, and windows that no longer closed. That day, the frost was bitter. Evening fell. We were preparing to sit down at the table before the tall fireplace, where a hare's saddle and 2 partridges were roasting over the bright flames, releasing a mouth-watering aroma. My cousin looked up. "It won't be warm sleeping tonight," he remarked. I replied indifferently, "No, but there'll be ducks on the ponds in the morning." The maid, who was setting the table, one end for us, the other for the servants, asked, "Do the gentlemen know that tonight is Christmas Eve?" Of course, we didn't. We rarely glanced at the calendar. My cousin said, "So there'll be midnight mass. That explains the bells ringing all day." The maid added, "Yes and no, sir. They were also ringing because old Uncle Fornell passed away." Uncle Fornell, a shepherd, was a local legend. He had lived in 96 and had never been ill, until one night, a month ago, he fell into a bog and caught cold. The next day, he took to his bed and had been dying ever since. My cousin turned to me. "If you're willing, let's go pay our respects to the poor folks." He meant the old man's family, his 58-year-old grandson and the grandson's 57-year-old wife. The generation in between had long since passed. They lived in a miserable hut at the entrance to the village, off to the right. I don't know why, but the thought of Christmas in that remote place made us chatty. We began swapping stories about past Christmas Eves, nocturnal escapades, former triumphs with women, and those curious awakenings the next morning, shared, surprising, and not without risk. Dinner stretched on. Afterward, we smoked countless pipes and, warmed by the cheer of solitude and that peculiar intimacy that arises between 2 close friends, we talked endlessly, sifting through our most heartfelt memories. The maid, who had left us long ago, reappeared. "Sir, I'm off to Mass. Already, it's 11:45. Shall we go to church?" Jules suggested. A village Christmas Mass is quite a sight. I agreed, and we set off, wrapped in fur-lined hunting coats. The frost bit at our faces, our eyes watered. The air was so frigid it stole our breath and dried our throats. The deep, clear, and austere sky was scattered with stars, pale from the cold, shimmering not like flames, but like icy crystals, like glinting shards of glass. In the distance, over the dry, resonant ground that rang like copper, we heard the clatter of peasant clogs, and all around, village bells tinkled, sending their thin, shivering sounds into the frozen vastness of night. The village was awake. Roosters crowed, fooled by the noise, and as we passed the barns, we could hear animals stirring, roused by the hum of life. As we approached the village, Jules suddenly remembered the Fornals. "There's their hut," he said. "Let's go in." He knocked for a long time, but no one answered. At last, a neighbor noticed us. She was stepping out of her house on her way to church. "They've gone to Madden's, gentlemen, to pray for the old man." "Then we'll see them when they come out," Jules replied. On the horizon, amid an endless scattering of stars, the waning moon hung like a slender sickle. Across the black plain, flickering lights trembled and converged from all directions toward the pointed steeple, which rang without pause. Through farms lined with trees, through dark valleys, everywhere those lights glimmered, skimming the ground. They were cowhorn lanterns. With them walked peasants, leading their wives in white caps and wide black cloaks, accompanied by sleepy children clutching their hands. Through the open church door, the pulpit glowed. A garland of cheap candles lit the center of the nave, and in the left chapel, a plump wax infant Jesus lay on real straw among fir branches, showing off his pink, affected nakedness. The service began. Men bowed their heads, women knelt in prayer. These simple folk, roused in the freezing night, gazed with reverence at the crudely painted figure and folded their hands, their eyes filled with timid awe at the humble splendor of this childlike tableau. The cold air made the candle flames quiver. Jules leaned toward me. "Let's go. It's better outside." We headed back along the deserted road, while the kneeling villagers shivered devoutly in the church. We resumed our conversation, reminiscing so long that the service had ended by the time we returned to the village. A thin strip of light stretched from beneath the Fornals' door. "They're keeping vigil over the body," said my cousin. "Let's visit them. It'll comfort them." A few embers smoldered in the hearth. The room was dark, its greasy walls glistening, the worm-eaten beams blackened with age. The air was thick with the stifling smell of fried blood sausage. On the large table, from beneath which the bread chest bulged like a belly, a candle burned in a twisted iron holder. Acrid smoke from the mushroomed wick curled toward the ceiling. The Fornals, husband and wife, were breaking their fast alone. Sullen, with dull peasant faces, they ate in silence, focused. On the single plate between them lay a large piece of blood sausage, steaming with a foul odor. From time to time, they sliced off a round, placed it on bread, and chewed slowly. When the husband's glass emptied, the wife refilled it with cider from a jug. Seeing us, they rose, offered us seats, invited us to join them, and after our polite refusal, returned to their meal. After several minutes of silence, my cousin asked, "So your grandfather, in time, has passed?" "Yes, sir. Just now." Silence returned. The wife, out of courtesy, trimmed the candle's wick. "To break the quiet," I said. "He was very old." The 57-year-old granddaughter replied, "Oh, his time had come. There was nothing left for him here." I felt a sudden urge to see the body of the centenarian and asked if we might. The peasants, calm until then, grew visibly uneasy. They exchanged anxious, questioning glances and said nothing. My cousin, noticing their discomfort, pressed the matter. Then the husband, grim and suspicious, asked, "What do you want that for?" "For nothing," Jules replied. "It's just customary. Why won't you show him to us?" The peasant shrugged. "I'm not refusing. It's just not convenient right now." We exchanged glances. Thoughts flickered in our minds. The old man's grandchildren sat motionless, eyes downcast, their wooden faces seeming to say, "You'd best be on your way." Jules spoke firmly. "Well then, in time, get up and take us to your grandfather." The peasant rose reluctantly and muttered, "No need to bother. He's not there anymore, sir." "Then where is he?" The wife interrupted. "I'll tell you. We laid him in the bread chest until tomorrow. We had nowhere else." She removed the plate of sausage, lifted the lid of the table, bent down with the candle, and lit the inside of the enormous box. Deep within, we saw a gray bundle. At one end, a gaunt face with tousled white hair. At the other, two bare feet. It was the old man, shriveled, eyes closed, wrapped in a shepherd's cloak, sleeping his final sleep among ancient black crusts of bread, as old as he was. And his grandchildren were breaking their fast beside him. Jules, shaken, trembling with anger, cried out, "Why didn't you leave him on the bed, you brutes?" The woman burst into tears and began speaking quickly. "I'll explain everything to you, sir. We have only one bed in the house. We used to sleep on it together, the three of us, including him. When he fell ill, we moved to the floor, but in this kind of frost, it's unbearable. And when he passed away, we said to ourselves, since he no longer feels anything, why leave him in the bed? We could just as well lay him in the bread chest until morning and sleep on the bed ourselves. The night's going to be freezing. Surely, gentlemen, you wouldn't expect us to sleep beside a corpse." My cousin, overcome with indignation, turned sharply and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I, unable to contain my laughter, hurried after him, laughing until tears streamed down my face. Ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the channel. Share your impressions and thoughts in the comments. I'd be delighted to hear from you.